If you've ever created content, you probably know that for it to rank higher on Google or stand out in LLM output, you need not only to cover all the most important topics to have higher topical authority, but to also address the content gaps, the connections between the topics that everyone, including you, is missing. And if, like me, you've used ChatGPT for SEO or search engine optimization, you know that the results that you normally get are quite generic. And this is because ChatGPT bases its advice on general SEO rules. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can connect ChatGPT to the InfraNodus MCP server that gives you access to the real SEO data, so search intent volume, Google search results. And what this InfraNodus MCP server does is that it represents your text as a knowledge graph that you can see right now on the screen. So you can identify the main topics and see which topics you need to cover to have topical authority. Then it identifies the content gaps for you. So what are the gaps that you should focus on and that you should bridge with the additions to your content to make it more relevant. But because it has access to real search volume, it will focus on the content gaps for which the search intent is higher, so that you can address those gaps that will be in demand with your audience. So if you're interested to see how it works, keep watching and I will demonstrate step by step. In fact, I'm going to be using a real example that we're doing for our own page, a use case on qualitative data analysis for InfraNodus, and I actually ran it twice. Once was with the standard SEO analysis from ChatGPT, so I just asked it to run SEO analysis and I get some recommendations, which are useful in some way. But again, like I said, they're too generic because ChatGPT doesn't have access to real search volume data. And here I'm using the InfraNodus MCP server, so I asked it to run the SEO analysis, but I connected the InfraNodus MCP tool here, and so it called the tool and then it ran the analysis based on the methodology that I'm going to show you. And the results that I get are very interesting because they're much more specific. In fact, InfraNodus here identified with ChatGPT together based on the data that InfraNodus provided, it identified the biggest SEO opportunities, so the bridges, the topics that I can connect in an interesting way. And then it provided me some specific advice on what kind of titles I should put on that page, what kind of sections I should add to address those gaps and to bridge them in an interesting way. And also because it has access to search volume, it actually can choose which of those recommendations I should actually follow in order to get the highest impact. So this is how it works, and I'm going to show you step by step how it's used inside this workflow. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is to add the MCP server to your ChatGPT. And in order to do that, you need to go to your settings here, settings, and then go to the apps tab. And then in the apps tab, you need to choose advanced settings and you need to activate the developer mode. This will give you access to external MCP servers. Once you activated that, you will have this icon appearing here, create app. So you click on create app and then you type in the name of the MCP server that you want to use. So here I'm typing in the direct link to our MCP server, and then you also give it a name. So for example, I can give it a name, InfraNodus MCP, can also be your account name if you have several accounts. And you can also describe what this MCP server does. So I can type in knowledge graph analysis and SEO just to give more context to the model. And then I click this here that I understand I want to continue. And then when I click create, all I need to do is to provide the API key from my InfraNodus account to ChatGPT. It will pop up a window here. I just paste the key here. So the key, you normally get it on the API access page. You can just create key. Okay, copy the key, go back to that page here, copy the key, click authorize. The authorization is successful and now we have the server connected. Okay, so once you connected your MCP server, you can add it here in ChatGPT. If you click on plus and more and then add InfraNodus DMT, that's the name of the server, and then you type in run SEO analysis on, and then you choose the page that you want to analyze. In this case, it's going to be this one here on qualitative analysis that we have. Then we bring it back here, and then sometimes I like to add using InfraNodus. If you don't add this, then ChatGPT might just run generic SEO analysis. And if you add InfraNodus, it's going to understand it should be using that particular tool. And you see what happens here is that instead of just giving you an answer, it calls the InfraNodus tool generates your report here, so you can see which tool it's calling. It sends this link to that tool, and what this tool does is very interesting. I actually want to show you exactly what happens step by step while it's doing the work, because it's quite a lot of work, and this is why it takes a few seconds, but I think it's very good for you to know what's actually happening. So if I go back to that visualization of the graph that we have of the original page, first InfraNodus will build the knowledge graph from the content of that page that I'm analyzing. So it's going to show me, okay, these are the main topics that exist on that page that you're covering, right? So this is kind of like what I'm talking about on that page. And based on this information, it can already provide me some insights on the parts that I'm missing. So for example, if I go to the content gaps and if I click highlight here, it's going to show me some content gaps between the different topical clusters that exist out there. So this information is already very useful because I can see how I can improve the content of this page by talking about the topics that are relevant in the context of this particular article, but in a way where I'm connecting the topics that are not well connected. For example, it's a page on qualitative analysis, and I have a whole cluster on knowledge graphs and on file management, but I'm not really connecting them. I'm not really showing how importing files from different sources and then representing them with knowledge graphs can be useful and interesting for qualitative analysis. So InfraNodus is going to ingest this data and give it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will have this additional insights in order to provide better SEO advice. And then it will reiterate through the different gaps and provide more information this way. Then the next thing that it does while it's working is that it's going to extract the most important search queries that I want to rank for from this page, from this graph. So for example, knowledge graphs, qualitative analysis, file management, and so on. And then it's going to run a special research on what you actually find on Google when you search for qualitative analysis. Okay, so what it's going to do under the hood is generate the graph of search results for this query. And that gives it an understanding of what already exists out there on the market and how well I'm comparing to what actually is out there, right? And if it sees that, for instance, there's some content that I'm missing, then it's probably going to tell me, okay, you should focus a little bit more on the software aspect of it, or maybe use the term QDA because everyone else is using it, and so on, right? So that's very important part because it shows you how you fit into the existing discourse. And then it's going to do one last thing that is super important, is that it's going to run the same query, qualitative analysis, but now it's going to run search intent graph. So it's going to show me what people are searching for when they search for qualitative analysis. And here it's very interesting because now I have access not only to the visualization and representation of my original page, but I also know what people are actually searching for and which terms I should be using. For instance, here I can see there's quite a lot of focus in the searches of people on data software, on the different types of software. In fact, I can click on some and see that a lot of people are searching for NVivo, Max QDA, and so on. So that gives me an understanding that maybe this page should be a bit more practical because these are the search queries that people are using. So imagine these are like a lot of insights. The analysis of the actual page that we had here. This is the first analysis. Then we analyze search results for all the search queries that we want to rank for. And then finally, we analyze search intent for these search queries to understand what people are searching for. And then what InfraNodus does is that it actually combines all of those different insights. So it calls this tool, it receives this really long response in JSON format with all the insights that I just showed you that we can manually get, and then generates a report for you on how you can optimize this page. So we took this page and then we generated the report. And here it's telling me, okay, so this is what the page already does well. This is your biggest SEO opportunities, the missing bridges. So these are the gaps, the content gaps that you can cover. And specifically, for instance, it's showing me here that you're talking about data clustering and file import and site generation, but you're not really connecting how they work together. So add some more practical information about real use cases of how people do qualitative analysis with your tool. Very good insight. Then another one, text analysis, knowledge graph, and site generation. So again, users are searching for this together, but the connection isn't explicit. So maybe I should focus a little bit more on how all of those connect so people understand a little bit more about the technical aspects of the tool and how it can be more useful than the others, right? And then it's also providing me some information about some high-value keywords I'm missing, but that I should target. So for example, text analysis software ranks has a high value. A lot of people are searching for it, but I'm not really mentioning it so much on that page. Also, the free trial intent, very important. A lot of people are searching for free tools, but I'm not really talking about the fact that InfraNodus has a free trial, so that's something to add. And then it provides me an insight on the quick SEO improvements. So what kind of title I can add to the page, insert a workflow diagram that shows how you can import and cluster, then analyze, and then get insights, add something about free trial, add explanation about why knowledge graphs work well for qualitative analysis, and so on. And then you see it gives me an overview, and then I can develop this further. And what's great about this is that now I can take this report and send it to my content team, or I can also use it myself in a tool like Cursor, for instance, where I can feed it as a prompt and then have this content automatically improved here. I would not do that because I like to work on my content manually, but for some people it may be interesting to also integrate this workflow into their automation flows. So this is how it would work step by step. This is the result that we get. And just for the sake of comparison, when you look at the standard ChatGPT output, you just have also sometimes quite good advice, like content overview and relevance, what keywords you're targeting, on-page SEO analysis, but it's a bit more about, which tags you should use, some generic advice like having frequently asked questions schema, which I already have there, a responsive layout. But these are all the stuff that if you work on content and if you know a little bit about SEO. So this is not specific enough, and most probably your competitors are doing the same thing. So if you have this extra edge of using the InfraNodus MCP server with real data, with the focus on content gaps, then you will get results that are much more specific, much more interesting, much more relevant to your audience. I've been using it myself in a lot of different applications, including InfraNodus and some other tools I'm working on. And I got some really good results because basically it enables me to address those very interesting niches and to do it in a way that is also relevant to my audience. So I hope you also find it interesting. Let me know how it works for you. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below the video and I will be happy to answer to every one of them. Thank you.